Welcome to the third episode in this series of Finance Matters, and today we're going to cover the what, why and how of pensions. What we're going to specifically work through in this is what is a pension, why do you need one, how do you get one, what happens if you change jobs, and how do you draw down your pension. And as normal, we're going to wrap it up in a big bow at the end and give you a teensy little bit of homework, but it's always good homework you're going to enjoy doing. So let's kick it off. What is a pension? In its more obtuse way of saying it, a pension, it's a tax efficient way of saving for retirement. So when we say tax efficient, you pay a lower rate of tax or quite often no tax at all. And you're putting aside a small portion of your income every pay period throughout your working life so that when you're finished working, you have an income to replace your current income. And that allows you to live a life, have a good standard of living, travel, do all the things that you want to do. So it's preparing early for the long term. Why does having a pension matter? Kind of matters a lot, right? It matters a lot because if you don't have one, you may not be able to live the life you want to live. You may not be able to live where you want to live. You may not be able to do the things you want to do. And having a pension means that you can continue on your life because it is essentially going to replace your current income. And if there's a big, huge drop between what you're currently bringing in and what you will have after retirement, that's going to mean that you're going to have to be thinking a lot more about money, scrimping a lot more, and maybe downsizing a lot more in your life than what you want to in your later years. To understand that there will come a time in your life when you don't want to work or you can't work. And the can't work is kind of important to keep in the back of your mind because you don't know what life's going to throw at you. And when that time comes, you don't want to be living hand to mouth, dreading the budget every October, wondering what's going to happen with the economy, wondering what's going to happen here. But if you feather your own nest, build up that financial security and put money into your pension early, then you can sidestep a huge amount of this. So what type of pensions are there? We could talk ad infinitum about pensions and the depths of pensions and the types of pensions and all that sort of thing. But for the purposes of this, I'm going to assume most of you are PAYE workers, and I'm going to go through the main type of pension that you'll be dealing with throughout your working life. The first one would be your contributory state pension. So this is often called the old age pension, and it's what you get every week. It's tax-free, it's not means tested, and it's what you get every week from the state, and you build it up over time. Then there's your occupational pension scheme, or quite often known as your employer's pension scheme, or for mostly your pension, right? That is what you pay while you're working with a company and the company has a scheme set up. And then you have your additional voluntary contributions. And these are taken from your salary just like your occupational scheme payments. And it comes out as one big sum. For all intents and purposes, you won't notice any difference in AVC's payments being taken out of your salary versus occupational pension schemes. It goes at the exact same way. The background workings are slightly different. It works like a PRSA, but for you and what you need it for, you won't need to see any difference really for the most part. But it's taken out in addition to your normal pension schemes to maybe top it up, paying a bit more, that sort of thing. Now, here's the thing. You get one state pension per person. You can have as many occupational pension scheme pensions as you want. You usually get one per job and you pay into it while you're there. It can be contributory or non-contributory. And as you change jobs, you can start up another and start up another and start up another. You can have as many of these as you have jobs in your life. And AVCs, these go in tandem with your occupational pension scheme. So if you have an occupational pension scheme, you can add on AVCs. You can't have them on their own. You can't have a contributory state pension and AVCs. You have a contributory state pension, your occupational scheme, and you have the option of additional voluntary contributions. The state pension. So you might think, but look, I have state pension coming to me, I'll be fine. State pension is just under $13,000 a year as it stands. And with inflation going and everything going the way it is, the cost of living is rising. So you need to know your expenses and you need to know how much you need to bring in per month to keep your head above water and keep up with everything else. And with the contributory state pension, you need to also think about, well, do you have your full stamps or your full contributions built up? Now, there's a few ways to build them and I'll show you how to get that and figure out where you are in a minute. But you need to know that the state pension, yes, it is a couple of hundred a week. you may not be hitting the top ones. You may be lucky enough to get the 553, but you may potentially be down at the 165. But it's important to know that, but it's also important to understand that you probably will not be living the high life on this state pension alone. You will most likely need extra money coming in just to keep everything going, and lights, heat, clothes, travel, all those things. Now, to see where you are with regards to your state pension and where you are with regards to contributions, you can go to mywelfare.ie and you can request a statement to be sent out, and that'll show you how many contributions you paid, where you are, and you can see then from this table that depending on what band you fall into, what pension you'd be entitled to when the time comes. So that is one way to fill your bucket when it comes to your pension. I love my little blue bucket. You'll see it a lot in this presentation. So to start your occupational pension scheme, so this will be your second little tap in your bucket. Usually you'll start it when you start a new job, you'll be offered a pension. If you're not offered a pension straight away, it's worth going to talk to HR to see what the situation is, but ideally know about this before you accept a job so that you can understand whether you're automatically enrolled in it and this you can join the pension plan straight away, or is there a waiting period, like a probationary period of 6 months or a year before you can join. Now, if you want to start a pension straight away and their occupational pension scheme's eligibility dictates that you need 6 months or a year, they have to facilitate a PRSA pension or a pension for you straight away that you pay into yourself. Most likely you won't get contributions from your employer during that time, but at least you can have that money building up. And when it comes to choosing the right pension funds, usually you're given several options, and depending on the size of the companies, you might have more or less options. If you're young and you're looking at different funds, potentially it might be worth looking at higher risk funds because you can absorb more volatility. Volatility is where the stock market goes up and down because you have a long run in before you need to draw the pension down. And generally stocks and shares grow more over time, but they also go up and down a lot more over time. And if you're older, you're getting closer to pension, or you're very, very conservative, then you might consider kind of safer funds or lower volatility, lower risk funds. They will have more cash, more bonds. Bonds tend to be a little bit more stable and fewer shares. So you won't have that upping, downing so much. So if there is a dip right before you retire, you're going to be less vulnerable to it because your money will be more in cash and bonds and kind of stable things, but you won't have the same growth with those. So it's just kind of good to keep in mind with that. So with regards pension thresholds, this revenue have set pension thresholds in place. Depending on your age, it's called maxing out your pension. So if you have, the example here is a 42-year-old earning €40,000 a year gets tax relief at 25%. So they can invest a maximum of 10,000 of their gross salary into their pension tax-free. That's what they can do. If you're under 30 and let's say you're on 40,000, you can invest a maximum of 15% of your gross salary into your pension tax-free. If you go above that, you'll be liable for tax, but within those bands, you won't. It'll all be, the money will just go in tax-free and grow. Now, the maximum of this, as you can see here, is up to 115,000 a year. So if you're earning more than 115,000 a year, you will pay tax on anything above 115,000, but up to that, and depending on your age, up to those thresholds, you can put quite a decent enough chunk of your money into your pension and allow it to grow over time. So, and this includes your AVCs as well. So if you, through your occupational pension scheme, put in 5%, you can put in another 10% AVCs on top and you'll still get the tax-free limit. So this money is going in tax-free. It's growing away there over the years. And then there's options when you're taking it down, which we'll deal with in a minute. So the tax benefits. Here's a really simple, nice example. So if you're a PAYE worker and you have an occupational pension scheme where your employer matches your contributions, they're usually up to a certain percentage, but you'll have to be putting in a good amount of money generally to meet those. So you decide, you know what, I'm going to put €200 a month into my pension. You get tax relief of €80. So in your paycheck, your take-home pay is only going to be down €120, even though €200 is invested. And if your employer puts in another €200, that means €400 every pay period, every month in this scenario, is going into your pension and it's costing you only 120. Now, and this is off your top rate of tax as well, which is great. So this means that if somebody came up to you and they said, hey, look, give me €120, I'll give you 400 back. But if you leave it with me, I'll let it grow and grow, and you might get multiples of that back. That's one of the best deals you're ever going to get. But you do have to get your head around the fact that the money is locked away for a while, but it will come back to you probably when you really need it. Now, auto-enrollment is definitely something that should be on the radar of any PAYE worker. Auto-enrollment, now bear with all the words here, this is going to be worth it because it's a real win if it's done properly. So the government recently announced the auto-enrollment scheme. It's for anybody who's PAYE over the age of 23. It means that if you are over the age of 23 and you're earning over 20,000, you're under the age of 60, you're going to automatically be enrolled in a pension plan. Now, this pension plan is in tandem with the government, your employer, and you. Now, you can opt out of it if you want, but that means you have to tick the box to say, I do not want to be in this pension plan. If you do not tick that box, then you're automatically going to be enrolled. But the beauty of this is that your employer is going to match your contributions and the state is going to top that up. So what that looks like, and it is not often you get this level of free money, right? And this is up to €80,000 of earnings, and most of us won't be on that kind of earnings. And once you're within your threshold, this is going to cost you minimum amount of money for a maximum amount of return. So if you put €3 into your pension, your employer will put in €3 into your pension, and the government will top that up by €1. So you put in €1 of your gross money, it's not even your post-tax money, your gross money, into a pension plan, or you put €3 of your gross money into your pension plan, and your employer will put in 3 and the government will top it up by 1. So you put in 3 and what you'll come out with is €7 being invested for every €3 you put in of your gross money. That is huge. So what that actually looks like is for every €1 you save, you're actually getting €2.33 put away for you to grow. So hopefully, and it should do, grow 3, 4, 5, 6, €7. It will grow in multiples. And this is money that you don't have to earn yourself. This is in addition to your salary. This is great. The next thing. So your AVCs. AVCs are additional voluntary contributions. So let's say your employer matches your contributions up to 5%. Right? And you put in 5% and your employer puts in 5%, and that's 10%. But you're in your 20s, so you can put 15% in. You can top up and hit max out, is what's called, so max out your pension up to that 15% using AVCs. So it's like an extra set of water going into that bucket to fill it up. So if you do end up in an auto-enrollment scheme, you have your occupational pension scheme with the top up, you have your AVCs if you want to max it out, and you have your state pension, and these are all building up over time to allow you to build up money really tax efficiently, paying very little tax, and it's going to be there for you on the other side when you really need it. Now, I love this, and this just shows you the impact of starting a pension early. This graph, and apologies, it's in dollars, but let's just pretend it's in euro for a few minutes. This shows the impact of you starting young. So if you start, the example here, at the age of 25, and you put 5,000 a year in for 10 years, so 50,000 in total, and you stop, and you never put another cent into it, and you leave it to grow. And then your colleague who starts their pension at 55, and they put in the exact same amount, 5,000 a year for 10 years, and then they hit 65 and they're hitting retirement, same amount of money. The difference being is the person who started early is going to have a pension pot of over $750,000. And the person who started later, it's 83,000. And this just shows you the impact. So even if you can't contribute a massive amount when you're younger, it is definitely worth it to start early, particularly with auto-enrollment, particularly with a pension contribution, particularly with the tax relief that you can get from it, and let it run over time. That will give you the best chance of putting the least amount in to get the biggest amount out. But the more you put in, the more it can grow. Question I get asked quite a lot: what happens if I change jobs? So if you change jobs, there are loads of options, okay? But there are 3 main ones if you're leaving your employer to maybe go to another employer. You leave your pension where it is, so you do nothing, right? So you've put your your money into your pension, maybe your AVCs, you can leave it there. It stays there. It has your name on it. It is earmarked for you and it is growing in the funds that you've left it in. Happy out, doing its thing. It will always be yours. You can have as many of these as you want. You can transfer your pension to your new employer. So that means you can roll it over. That's just a phone call and a bit of paperwork. So your existing pension can be rolled over into your new employer's pension plan. So you can have one big pension and just let it grow and grow and grow. Or you can have smaller pensions dotted around. Or you can move your pension into your own name. And that's called a personal retirement bond or a buyout bond. And this is a neatly little package lump sum that you can draw when the time comes, sometimes earlier. Usually this happens when it's a smaller amount. So let's say you were with an employer for only a small amount of time and there's only a couple of thousand in the whole pension plan in total, or maybe less. And it's quite a small sum of money, and maybe you move jobs or the company goes bust or something like that. A buyout bond or a personal retirement bond is a great place to put this. And quite often, since it's generally, not always, but generally small amounts of money here, you can usually draw it down maybe when you're 50 or 55, depending on the plan. But you'll have all that information when it is changed over into that. So they are your basic arrangements. And when it comes to retirement, when it comes to drawing down your pension, the amount that you have built up, so remember all your buckets, you have your state pension, your occupational pension scheme, your AVCs, all that money going in and growing and growing and growing. It really does depend on loads of different factors, how much is in the bucket, some decisions you will need to make, be it ARFs or different things like that. Don't worry about that. For most people, you're going to be able to get a tax-free lump sum straight away. But no matter what, you will have a tax-free drawdown of $18,500 per person. And this is a sum of money tax-free. You can draw down more than that, but you're going to be hitting the income tax. It'll be 20% income tax. You'll be taxed with USC, but you will not have PRSI. PRSI is for paying into the system, building up your pension, all that sort of stuff. But when you're drawing down your pension, you're drawing from PRSI, so you're not paying into it anymore. But you do have the USC and the income tax to pay if you go above the 18,500. And don't worry about overpaying, right? Because there is this thing called the standard fund threshold. And for most of us, we will not get near this, okay? We absolutely will not get near this. This threshold is €2 million. Now, if you hit this, it's not the worst tax to be paying, but you will hit a 40% tax. And there's all nice rules and regulations around it. But below that, you will be drawing down your 18,500 a year. If you draw down more, then you pay your 20%, you pay your USC, and you just move on. It's really straightforward. So you have these great tax reliefs going in, letting it grow and grow and grow. And when it comes to drawdown, you have your tax-free drawdown, or else you'll have your 20% tax and your USC in that. And that's basically how it works. So whether you have one occupational pension scheme that you rolled over and over, and you had loads of dribs and drabs, they can all be drawn together. There are mechanisms and frameworks to bring all this down. That money is yours. So once you put it in, it is yours, and it's up to you when it comes time for drawdown, how and when you do it. So don't worry. This tax efficient going in, it's tax efficient for the most part coming out. So in summary, paying into a pension is a great way to build money in a tax efficient way. It's just getting your head around the fact that it's going to be locked away for a while. You need a pension for when the time comes when you can't work or you don't want to work. And most of us would be retiring in our 60s, but we're going to live on until our 80s. And you might live on a heck of a lot longer depending on your health. And you want to have enough money to keep you going during that time. For most PAYE workers, you're looking at your state pension, your occupational pension scheme, and your AVCs. Auto-enrollment is going to make things a lot easier, particularly if those top-ups work out really well. And if you change jobs, you have different options. You can leave it there, you can roll it over, you can get a buyout bond. But no matter what, that money is yours. And you can draw down 18,500 tax-free when you hit retirement. And after that, then you're just paying your 20% tax or whatever. So your task for this lesson, should you accept it, download in the show notes, there is a pension jargon buster. You can have that. It's where I speak in plain English about a lot of the bigger words and the words that can kind of mix glaze over and fall asleep. And it's just broken down. It'll make it easier for you. I'll have the different charts in with the thresholds and stuff, just so you have it to look at, to kind of go, where I am, what am I doing, what thresholds am I hitting, that sort of thing. So have that and keep it for yourself so you can draw on it at any stage. So thank you for listening this far. I hope it's given a good light to pensions, and I hope it's made you decide that, look, this is absolutely something that you're going to go for. And thank you for listening.